And last week, a U.S. drone mistakenly targeted a wedding convoy in Yemen after intelligence reports identified the vehicles were carrying al-Qaeda militants. It was a gruesome attack in which more than a dozen people were left dead and 22 injured, with 9 in critical condition. Shortly after this tragedy, Yemen's parliament voted for a ban on drone strikes. And although these headlines quickly spread across the United States and around the world, some are wondering how reaction might have been different if the drone had hit an American wedding instead. That's exactly what Connor Friedersdorf explored in his Atlantic article called "If a Drone Strike Hit an American Wedding, We'd Ground Our Fleet." In the article, Friedersdorf asks this question: can you imagine the wall-to-wall press coverage, the outrage, and the empathy for the victims that would follow if an American wedding were attacked in this fashion? Or how'd you feel about a foreign power that attacked your wedding? To talk a little bit more about what happened this week and what it will take to make Americans empathize, I was joined earlier by Michael Brooks, contributor at The Majority Report and host of Intersection on Aslan Media. I first asked him for his thoughts on the article.
You know, I think obviously if there was a drone strike from a foreign power that hit an American wedding party, or, you know, for that matter, we don't need to go too far away. There was a terrorist attack in the United States on September 11th, right, that we had an incredible reaction to, and not rightfully in terms of our policies, but rightfully that people were upset by this. I think in some ways we could draw an even closer parallel and say that these policies that we're implementing overseas and carelessness with things like drone strikes are affecting American security. They are blowing back. Now, we might not see a direct relationship, but they're definitely there.
Sure. You know, and the author said something that really stuck out to me. He said, even putting Yemenis through the most horrific scene imaginable on their wedding day is but a blip on our media radar, easily eclipsed by a new Beyonce album. You know, while the headlines did get some traction on the internet, we do see it, you know, marginalized by and large by TV media. I mean, what is your sense as to why that is?
You know, I think it's almost overdetermined. There's so many different variables, from kind of lack of resources covering overseas news to lack of public engagement on these issues. But I think that what he's getting at that's also really important is we need to broaden our empathy. We need to think much more seriously about what's happening in other parts of the world, obviously, particularly if it's done in our name. And I think, you know, that aspect of kind of projecting outward morally and emotionally, but it's also politically very important. We need to be more sophisticated and engaged in our thinking. So I don't know exactly the specific reason why it's not getting the type of coverage that it should get and deserves to get.
Well, going off of what you're saying right now, I wanted to ask you, you know, why you think it is that Americans can't really empathize with innocent foreigners. Why is it so hard for them to do?
You know, I don't know if that's a fair, you know, assumption entirely. I actually do think that the more does come out on this program, polls have shifted on it and people are more engaged with it. But I think there's no question that generally the United States is very inward looking, and there isn't this kind of real sense of our footprint on the rest of the world. And that just really remains a problem. And it remains a problem in most countries that project overseas.
Sure. And Michael, interestingly, you know, when I hear people defend the U.S. drone program, they often say that it's great because we catch the bad guys and we do it with, you know, real surgical precision. But based on what we've seen so far with the strikes so far in Yemen, Pakistan, and other Muslim countries, is that really the case?
I think the notion of using surgical to describe strikes like this is kind of obscene, actually. I mean, the reality is that there are two different types of drone strikes, broadly speaking. And I think when we're talking about targeting a specific individual in a very specific context, that's its own debate, and there's more gray there, to be you know, sort of honest in what I think. But signature strikes, which I think that's what this strike would fall under, which are based off of behavioral patterning, And it basically means, by definition, we don't even know who we're hitting. We're just saying, if you're in a certain place, if you fit a certain pattern, we're going to hit you. By definition, that's not surgical. By definition, we don't know who we're hitting. And it's really an incredibly problematic way of framing it, given the results.
It is problematic, and it's really tragic to see what's happening over there. But I do appreciate you coming on the program and breaking that down. Michael Brooks, contributor at The Majority Report and host of Intersection on Aslan Media. Thank you.
Thank you so much.